A nurse accused of murdering 7 babies in a hospital neonatal unit wrote, "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them," a court has heard. The trial of Lucy Letby was told on Thursday that police had recovered several handwritten documents from her home after her arrest in July 2018. On one note shown to the jury, headlined "Not Good Enough," she wrote, quote, "I will never have children or marry. I will never know what it's like to have a family, and I can't breathe." On another, she wrote, "I am a horrible, evil person." And on another, in capital letters, "I am evil, I did this," the jury was told. The 32-year-old is accused of murdering 7 newborns, including 2 brothers from a set of triplets, over the course of a year at the Countess of Chester Hospital. She allegedly tried to kill 10 others by injecting them with air, milk or insulin between June 2015 and June 2016. Letby denies all 22 charges. Letby was eventually removed from the neonatal ward in June 2016, 4 months after a senior doctor had started to connect her to the unexplained deaths and collapses the trial has heard. In that 4-month period, she is alleged to have murdered 2 brothers from a set of triplets and to have attempted to kill 5 other babies. Day 4 of the trial at Manchester Crown Court heard how police recovered notes that included, quote, "many protestations of innocence," end quote, when they arrested Letby at home in Chester on the 3rd of July 2018. On another handwritten note shown to the jury, she wrote, quote, "I don't deserve to live. I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them," end quote. She also wrote on the note, quote, "There are no words. I can't breathe. Kill myself. I haven't done anything wrong. How can I get through it? And I'm an awful person." She had also written "no hope" and "panic fear," and then circled in capital letters "hate." Letby's barrister, Benjamin Myers KC, described the notes as the, quote, "anguished outpouring of a young woman in fear and despair when she realises the enormity of what is being said about her, and this is her way of expressing it in the moment to herself," end quote. He added, quote, "This note reflects the anguished state of mind Miss Letby found herself in, and what she felt when she learned of how she was accused of killing children she had done her best to care for. What you see there is anguish, not guilt," end quote. On one note, she allegedly wrote, quote, "Why, how has this happened? What process has led to this current situation? What allegations have been made, and by who? Do they have written evidence to support their comments?" The jury was told that Letby wrote on another, quote, "I haven't done anything wrong, and they have no evidence, so why have I had to hide away?" end quote. The court also heard on Thursday that Letby had tried to kill a 3-day-old boy 24 hours after murdering 2 brothers from a set of triplets. After the collapse of child P, she allegedly told one doctor, quote, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" end quote. This surprised the doctor, who had been hopeful the baby would recover, but the child was pronounced dead less than an hour later at 3 days old. After their deaths, Letby allegedly spent time with their parents and took a photograph of the dead brothers together in a cot, the court heard. Letby was moved from the neonatal ward in June 2016 after consultants suspected that the deaths and life-threatening collapses of these 17 children were not medically explicable, and they were the result of the actions of Lucy Letby. She was moved to clerical duties where she would not come into contact with children, Johnson said. Myers, defending, said there was no evidence of Letby hurting the babies, and that the prosecution case was, quote, "driven by the assumption that someone was doing deliberate harm, combined with the coincidence on certain occasions of Miss Letby's presence," end quote. He added, quote, "What it isn't driven by is evidence of Miss Letby actually doing what is alleged against her." The barrister told jurors it would be, quote, "staggeringly unfair," end quote, to convict a person without a word of evidence. Myers said, quote, "There is a real danger that people will simply accept the prosecution theory of guilt, and that's all we have so far, ladies and gentlemen, a theory of guilt based firmly on coincidence. If anything can be based firmly on coincidence," end quote. The defence suggested the care of some of the babies was, quote, "suboptimal repeatedly," and that deaths could be in part be explained by failings of the hospital. Maya said there had been, quote, massive failure of care in a busy hospital neonatal unit, far too great to blame on one person. He said the unit was, quote, well out of its depth, end quote, looking after some of the newborns who should have been under specialist care at other hospitals. The case continues. Okay, now someone on the forum Web Sleuths has taken a look at this note and they believe that it states the following. Not good enough. There are no words. I am an awful person. I pay for that every day. I can't breathe. I can't focus. Kill myself right now. Overwhelming fear. Panic. No hope. I'll never have children or marry. I'll never know what it's like to have a family. I haven't done anything wrong. Police investigation, forget slander, discrimination, victimization, all getting too much, everything, taking over my life, everyone. Hate myself so much for what this has. Despair. I feel very alone, scared. What does the future hold? How can I get through it? How will things ever be like they used to be? They won't. Panic, fear, lost, hate. I did this. Why me? I don't deserve to live. I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them. I'm a horrible, evil person. Killing me. I don't deserve Mum, Dad, Tom, Matt. World is better off without me. I am evil. I did this. Now, for me personally, and my own personal opinion, I think this note is going to divide opinion. You're going to have a lot of people who say, clearly, this is an admission of guilt here. This is a note which clearly states, I killed them, I'm responsible, basically. But on the other hand, you're also going to have a subsection of people who are going to say this was a woman who was under a great deal of stress, someone who was clearly traumatized by what had happened, the police investigation which was to follow, etc., etc. And this is simply someone who was struggling to cope. Now, one thing that I do believe is worthy of mention here concerning this note is that there isn't really any mention about the loss of life, the loss of these poor children, the deaths of these poor children. It's all very inwardly focused, very self-focused, me kind of thing. You know, it's very much panic, fear. What am I going to do? How am I going to cope? Not really any discussion or any sort of trauma or depression, guilt or sadness concerning the loss of these poor children. I think that is something that is definitely worthy of note there. Now, I believe the defence are going to have quite a difficult time in explaining away this note. As I say, you could really fall on one of two sides here. Either you believe this was simply a confession, someone who couldn't cope anymore, someone who was clearly mentally unwell, or you could say, as I said earlier, this is someone who was struggling to cope with her current situation. Now, interestingly, I replied to a comment in a previous video regarding what the defence's response will be to the allegations put towards Lucy Letby. And particularly considering this note, I already knew exactly what the defence were going to say. It's pretty obvious, really. I mean, the defence can't say anything else, can they? They have to say that Lucy Letby was under a great deal of pressure. She was struggling to cope. This was a person who deeply cared for these children. This isn't the writing of someone who is a murderer. This is someone who is pouring out their heart onto a piece of paper. I mean, look at this objectively for one moment. What else could the defence say? They can't say, well, she wrote this stuff, but she didn't mean it. They're going to have to put some context to it, aren't they? They're going to have to give some reason for what is written on that post-it note. And the only thing that they can really say is that this was an individual who was overcome with stress, who was facing a great deal of pressure. There was this unjust police investigation taking place, and this is simply the outpouring of someone who cared deeply for these children. I mean, realistically, what else was the defence going to say? Clearly, we are still at the very earliest stages of this trial, and I think that's worth remembering, regardless of whatever side of the fence you currently sit. I'm sure there's a lot more to be said from the defence and also from the prosecution in this case. If you wish to keep up to date with the comings and goings of the trial concerning Lucy Letby, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. And as always, many thanks for joining me for this particular video, and I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.